All right. Buenas tardes, everybody. We are here for a Consortium of Cities meeting. Welcome and thank you. First of all, can we just give a friendly round of applause to Louisville for hosting us? And we know it's the staff who opened the door and brought everything in, so we appreciate y'all. Thank you. We're here. It's August 20th, 2025, and our meeting this evening is 6 to 7:30. And I just say that because we've talked about reducing our evening meetings, and so we're taking control of our evening meetings. So thank you. A couple different pieces. I want to just go over the agenda real quick in regards to, we're here this evening to talk about disaster and emergency management and that topic of regional collaboration that Consortium of Cities has been involved in for a little while. So Mike Chardon will get introduced here in a moment. And then we do have just an update opportunity for folks to give an update around 7 o'clock or so on the minimum wage from the regional standpoint. And then don't forget, you'll get to share out any community updates or events that are happening. I know there's a couple of folks that had sent over presentations ahead of time. I want to just ask if there's anything additional that people were expecting to put on the agenda, or we're looking to make sure gets an opportunity if there's time to be discussed. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so we will move forward. My plan is that we'll take a break around 7, right before we go into our second piece of business. We'll all get up together and we're going to take a group photo since we're here in Louisville, and we haven't had Consortium in Louisville for a while. So with that being said, I want to really appreciate Mike Chard, you and your team, who is helping us regionally. And I know you're doing work with cities and teams, and I know I've seen Monique up in the mountains all over the place doing a lot of work. And really quick on the microphones, if anybody didn't get the instructions, once you turn that green, the speaker light on, then you'll be live. So if you do need to sneeze or cough, feel free to turn that off and then turn it back on. So that's the, come on and enjoy us. We'll go around really quick with introductions for electeds at the table. So we'll start this way with Nick.
Good evening, Nick Robles, Policy Analyst in the Commissioner's Office.
Hi, I'm Scott Furley. I'm Chair of the Local Improvement District in Niwot.
Thank you.
Miguel Aguilar, Transportation Planner with the Town of Erie.
Caleb Dickinson, Mayor Pro Tem of Louisville.
Thank you.
It's all right. Hi, Jen Cowish, Councilmember Superior.
I'm Jonathan Kane, Town Manager of Netherland.
Sean McCoy, Long West City Council.
Tara Weiner, Boulder City Council.
Thank you.
I'll get it right. Mike Chard, Director of the Office of Disaster Management for the City of Boulder and Boulder County.
Thank you. And I'm Martha Loachman. I'm a Boulder County Commissioner. So we're really honored to be in here in Louisville this afternoon. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mike Chard.
Awesome. Thank you. Pleasure to be here with everyone and also those on online. What we have planned for you agenda-wise, there's a handout that's gone around also. Nick will be able to bring up and share hopefully the screen that has the handout. But in the last year, asked by the Consortium of Cities Group to look at how are we regionalizing emergency management across Boulder County. I think it's an important question. We look at our disasters. They know no boundaries jurisdictionally. They have a tendency to go where they need to go. So having a good integrated approach to this is important. I do have other emergency managers from across the county that will come up, and we're looking to kind of just give an update to everyone about what that means. We talk about how we look at the enterprise of emergency management here in Boulder County from each municipality. So we have Superior, we have Longmont, Lafayette, Louisville, and then of course City of Boulder and Boulder County, and have them kind of just take the opportunity to say, hey, here's how we view this. We've talked with everybody, and there's a whole range of when asked that question, how we would answer it. Have them share their experience, also any program updates they have. And then I'd like to also be able to share where we are in a assignment replacement program that affects many of the counties on the plains. If we can get through that quickly, we'd like to update you on the next big question that affects us is, what's going on with grants in the state of Colorado, because that does have effects on cities and counties here in Boulder County. I'll walk you through that. Also, Ryan Airy is here from the County Recovery Office. He will then talk about local recovery planning. We've, since they started looking at how things are changing with FEMA reorging and what that's going to look like here locally, it will have impacts, some good and some others really undetermined, but on also how we can approach looking at recovery from a fiscal side. He put together a great tool to help us kind of adjust our understanding of what public assistance might look like in the future. And then, of course, time permits, give you a quick little what's the next 90, 120 days look like related to wildfire and cyber. And those seem to be the two big threats we're tracking in our hazard vulnerability assessment. So on that note, Allison is here. She's ready to go. Superior.
Hi, Allison James, Disaster Preparedness and Recovery Manager for the Town of Superior. Thanks for inviting me, and it's good to see you all. Since the Marshall Fire, we've collaborated a lot together. We've really teamed together, especially Louisville, unincorporated Boulder County, and Superior, ODM, the Boulder Recovery Office. So we've all worked together on so many projects since Marshall Fire. For Superior, it seemed like a natural transition to work on an MOU together and support one another to coordinate things like enhancing staffing, sharing resources, and mutual aid during emergency operations center activations, and really just put our shoulders to the wheel to help each other out when another municipality needs help, like we did for the Marshall Fire. And so for the last, I guess, 3.5 years, we've been working to really try to integrate and train under ODM and the Sheriff's Office. We do have an agreement and contract with the Sheriff's Office, which can be different from other municipalities who have their own forces. So naturally for us, our MOU was kind of our decision.
Yep, there you go. Thank you.
Thanks.
Really quick, Allison. Sure. Oops, sorry. I just want to offer if anybody had any questions for Allison before she moves. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. If I can interrupt you really quick, I want to make sure that folks who have arrived got a chance to introduce themselves, and then we have at least one person online that I could see. So Ken, if you want to come off and just introduce yourself, and then council member. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll have that too.
Ken, do you want to come off you and introduce yourself, and then Andrew, and then council member Fahey was online.
Well, this is Andrew Moore. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm the mayor of Erie, and I'm just listening in and appreciate the topic tonight.
Thank you for joining. And Councilmember Deborah Fay's online, and you might be doing other things at the same time. That's completely fine. Ken Lenarchik is on. Oh, there she is.
Hi, Deborah Fahey, Louisville City Council, and I'm also grateful for what is being discussed this evening. So I just want to listen in. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll continue here in the room. Councilmember.
I'm actually the secret sub. Lauren Folkerts couldn't be here tonight, and I've been the sub for like almost 4 years, but it's the first time I'm here, and I hope it sounds great. I'm excited about it. Tara Weiner, Boulder City Council.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Pete Bradshaw, I'm the fire chief and emergency manager with the city of Lafayette. So first, I just want to say I think we enjoy a fantastic level of cooperation with or without agreements. We have great relationships in this county, and regardless of what agreement we end up with, we understand our relationships will carry us through whatever happens. So we're all happy to work together. The city of Lafayette, we're I would say our city is in a phase of modernization and going up. So we're working on a lot of things. Currently, we're focused on creating resource or resilience hubs in the community. We're doing some feasibility work around that, and kind of talking about the maybe the culmination of that is day sheltering in response to micro disasters, whether they be weather related or even private facilities. We have a lot of care facilities in our town, so we're trying to kind of game plan and pre-plan those things that are specific to the city of Lafayette. So then kind of at the outside of that, we're looking at continuity of government and continuity of operation planning throughout. We're a full service city, so we oversee a lot of utilities, and we understand that people are dependent on us pretty much 24/7. So appreciate being here. I appreciate the conversation. And I will just say, coming from a different place over to here a few years ago, I appreciate the leadership of Boulder County ODM and their accessibility and availability, officially or unofficially. It's a great relationship we have here collaboratively. I think we showed that during COVID and some other things. So yeah, happy to be here and look forward to the conversation.
Just want to make sure if anybody has any questions for you, Chief, before you. Okay, thank you.
You're up.
Hi, everybody. Kiana Freeman, the Recovery and Resilience Manager for the City of Louisville. Happy to be a part of this conversation. This is something that is not necessarily new to Louisville's discussion. This has been in the works for quite a while. And so for us, we're very interested in this MOU. We've had a great and fantastic partnership with Office of Disaster Management, the Recovery Office, and other county divisions and departments. And for us, we want to expand that and really leverage that expertise. As the Marshall Fire greatly impacted the city of Louisville, our residents have been asking for this, as well as our staff, with just not only the resource inventory management, but also just the overall expertise that ODM and also other divisions and departments have in the county. And so for us, this is something we're really excited about. We're really eager to have this discussion and can't wait to see how this develops. Thank you.
Thank you. Same, just to make sure there's nobody that has any questions for Louisville. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dion Fenning, the Director of Emergency Management for the City of Longmont. And I just to echo what's already been said here, we've maintained and always had a great relationship with the Boulder ODM and our other local jurisdictions. We're proud of the collaboration and coordination that we've been able to sustain over the years. Our program, we feel, is in a really good place right now. We have two full-time staff members plus recovery officer. We have over 150 city staff, directors, volunteers, and other external partners who come and are to staff our EOC if we should need to activate for a disaster. We're in a good place right now. The last couple of years, we've really worked on building that staffing model up and training those folks so they can come in and operate in an EOC. This fall, we're working on updating our emergency operations plan and getting that for our council approval. Adoption next spring, and then next year we'll be looking at partnering with hopefully mitigation planning efforts that should be kicking off here pretty soon. So we're in a good place. We feel like we're in a good place. We're going to maintain our program as is, but we constantly look out for areas and opportunities to collaborate and coordinate with Office of Disaster Management and other jurisdictions.
Thank you, Dan. Any questions for Longmont?
All right, thanks. To button this up then on where we are in this discussion that's been going on for a year, the conversations we've been having, really, it gets back to the disaster statute, 2433.5707. Don't ask me why I remember that, but I do. If you want to read a statute that's pretty, has a lot of ambiguity to it and doesn't really say this is exactly how it should look, that's the statute. So what it does say, though, is that the Board of County Commissioners are responsible for emergency management within the county, and then the principal officer of a municipality is. And if they elect not to provide emergency management, then they have to contact the governor, and the governor kind of decides how that goes and how it works. So what you're hearing is every municipality here in Boulder County does have somebody that's assigned. In Erie, they're on. Lee Mathis worked with closely. And like Longmont, they have a unique circumstance where they span two counties, which creates some challenges around how disaster response goes, especially when we get into, recovery and large ticket items. So we have a strong relationship also with Weld County, Roy Rudisell, the emergency manager over there. But within that statute, what it really kind of gets to is agreements. And that's what we're really trying to formalize here as we go for our EOP update for the city of Boulder and Boulder County in 26. And that is going to look like some formal MOUs, not necessarily IGAs. But as you heard Allison talk about and the chief is getting down to this sort of agreement. Let's talk about how we kind of do our horse trading. What are we swapping things for? They help out when we, in the EOC and other ways. How can we be like a support element when they're doing training exercises, things of that nature, and do sort of an in-kind agreement. Louisville, though, interestingly enough, has been moving more towards a formal integration into ODM, and that is continuing forward. So I don't know if the city manager has any comments on that, but Diana, if you want to just share anything, I want to speak on your behalf. But this is something where, like the city of Boulder, many years ago, City of Boulder and Boulder County came together with a formal IGA, and they have a cost share agreement on the services. And that's important because after Diana shares where we're at, it'll kind of help explain then why that's fortuitous and why it's expensive. So.
All right, thank you. Yes, so we've received a proposal from Boulder ODM for Louisville to join. With that, we would be able to benefit from the services provided by Boulder ODM. And from a cost structure perspective, the way the proposal is set out is that the city and county of City of Boulder and then Boulder County would not have to contribute towards Louisville's participation. So looked at the cost to currently provide services and what the additional cost would be to bring on the additional personnel and then overhead to provide services to Louisville. That proposed cost is just under $214,000 for the first year. City Council has tentatively approved it for the 2026 supplemental budget. And at this point in time, Director Chard and I are going through the scope of work to make sure that we both have an understanding of what's included in that scope of work. And then we'll be bringing that before the board and then also council for formal consideration and development of an IGA.
Thank you. And how that proceeds, we'll get it. Yeah, yeah, go ahead. Question.
Yes.
This is like a straw man question. Louisville has been benefiting from the ODM, Marshall Fire being a great example, without paying in that money.
Yep.
Why on earth would we choose to now pay to get probably similar help? What is the benefit to us, and what is the reason why Louisville is doing that instead of continuing to sort of freeload off of that system?
Thank you for that question. So I've been here 4.5 months now as the new city manager. And one of the things coming in, Louisville, in terms of the size of the staff, Kiana has done a great job, but we don't have the expertise that Boulder ODM can provide when it comes to emergency preparedness, disaster management. Also with the having Louisville Fire Protection District, who also does a fantastic job, but outside of the city, a lot of times fire departments drive the hazard preparedness within an agency. And so Louisville, without having that in-house expertise as well, it's an with. And so to be able to make sure that we are serving citizens, the residents best that we can, my recommendation is to join Boulder ODM so that we gain not only that level of expertise, but the magnitude of scale of services that they can provide that we just cannot provide in-house.
Yeah, and to add to that, when you look at the statute and having our legal advisor interpret that, the obligation of the county, so saying it's freeloading is kind of, there's a lot of things that aren't happening necessarily without that agreement. So for example, Chief Bradshaw and also like Allison, they're taking on all the other missions of emergency management that are occurring beyond response. So the obligation that we have as a county, as it's been interpreted, is that if there's a disaster at city municipality, we have residents of our county that are, it's a life safety mission, there's health and safety, welfare. there's an obligation to provide a response structure that may be exceeding the local municipality's ability to coordinate and bring in resources and do all the things that we do. But outside of that, that's then where we don't have necessarily the capacity to start doing everything for Erie and all the other municipalities without additional resourcing. And that's where like the city of Boulder many years ago said, we want to have all this combined. So we're not just a one-person shop. We see that across our state and quite frankly, America, where you have one-person shops, it's this other duties is assigned, and the emergency management program doesn't really gain anything more than checking boxes. They're really not developing capacity, preparedness in the community, and doing the things necessary in all those different elements that are critical to have when a disaster strikes. So this helps bring that horsepower together. I've got staff that have been through multiple disasters, and having that experience, I can tell you, you can't buy that in a class. You can't get that in a training program. That's real world, point of contact stuff. And then dealing with the recovery on the scales that we've had, there's a lot there that can be brought into Louisville and be a force multiplier. What we gain for it is we pick up an FTE. The city of Boulder does that. That helps us with coverage. That's another person in the mix. So there's a sharing of resource here, where the city and the county may not have been able to resource that extra FTE that adds horsepower to my staff, but we're also able to do these things that we just naturally do and bring that into Louisville at I think an efficient cost and it with an ease that I haven't become an expert in everything because I've got staff that definitely resonates in all those areas with a lot of experience and education. You bet. So that kind of sums up where we're at. So some MOUs coming, some updated EOPs will reflect some of these changes. And like I said, the partnerships that have already been expressed, I value them immensely. We help each other out. That's one thing that I tell when I go around the country speaking is I benefit immensely from just the level of cooperation from senior leadership, department heads, and elected officials like no other. And that is what has led us through many of the disasters that we've had here in Boulder County. We sure have had our fair share. And just because we're a front range county, we're probably going to continue with that. So the more work to be done and the more we can integrate and be tied together, the better off we'll be. Either that's through formal integration agreements or just handshake agreements. Keeping that cooperation door open is huge. And that's all I have on this particular topic.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge that there's a lot of work that's been going on, a lot of people involved, and also Consortium of Cities members have been in these conversations over the last couple of years about how do we use county resources and spread out and not be creating events or preparedness work has been a continual theme. And so I just want to appreciate the return of information and the continued partnership with this group too as elected officials, because our residents are asking us in a lot of situations. So
but they are. So if I can, I still have some more topics. Would you like us to continue with those?
Yep.
Monica, if you could. I'm sorry, I skipped over that. So
that's all right. I will
sneak in here.
Hello, all. Monica Weber, coordinator at Boulder Office of Disaster Management. I'm the last little kind of section on this slide, but representing our office and then our other municipalities, not representing them in terms of our program. But September is National Preparedness Month, and all of us have different programmatic elements that go on throughout the year in our respective jurisdictions. But with this, wanted to compile just a list of everything that's going on in the county. So everyone here that does this type of work was collaborative in creating the schedule so we can share it with folks. So if you want to attend things locally, you're able to, but really just trying to share out what we're doing programmatically so that in September, if our communities don't know these things go on year round, there's a more concerted effort to raise that awareness, especially as we go into kind of our higher wind, higher hazard season for fire. So that is what I can pass these around and just share out a lot of really programmatic things going on. Highlights, let's see. Personally, we have something going on every week throughout the month, and I know our partners do as well. So there's ways for folks to engage throughout that list in different municipalities. There's things that are in person, virtual, that people can engage with. And from our programming side at ODM, folks that can participate were incentivized by giving people preparedness supplies as they come to things, so that folks leave with can kind of work forward with and continue to grow in their personal preparedness and trying to help people move that needle, even if it's in a small way, helping them access things that they might not be able to afford otherwise or just aren't sure that they should have. Really trying to shift that and empower people across our communities to figure out how they can take steps personally, and really sometimes sharing with them the things that are not easy to hear, but that are important to hear for our community, so they know where that responsibility lies of what steps they can take and should take to prepare, because help might not be on the way as quickly as it's going to be on a regular blue sky day when we're in disaster. So really coming at it from an empowerment standpoint, to help folks learn what they can do to better themselves and the communities overall. And that'd be anything to add from folks that also do this work. Great.
Thank you, Monica. And
Yep,
I just
thank
want a reminder for those of you who were representing your city town last year, we did get involved and had some groups and different electeds showing up at same events, just trying to share out on social media and other things. So really appreciate you bringing that calendar ahead of time so that we can participate again. Thank you.
All right. What we'd like to cover next is grants and FEMA. And if everyone's tracking this, if you don't have any questions, let me know. I can just not bore you with it, but okay. Bore you with it. Okay. That's a little bit of sarcasm. My apologies. The handouts you have here, next slide, if you wouldn't mind, Nick. So there's two things. Let's take the grants first. There's two grants that existed in the Front Range and actually state of Colorado for quite some time, since 9/11. In 2003, state of Colorado created these all hazard regions. And the reason why I have this visually for you is these are the two grant sources that are out there. And I can't tell you the acronym. I feel embarrassed because I'm supposed to know every acronym, but it's called SHISHGAP, whatever that means. It's like a 5-letter thing that's, I don't know why they call it that, but that's how it's referred to in our line of work. And that is what the all hazard regions have access to. This is a grant that comes in. There was a funding formula created at the state through the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. That money then was allocated into these regions. Each region then had a baseline funding, and they would then do hazard vulnerability assessments, decide what was important to fund, and then they would go ahead and fund their projects. These projects could be equipment, it could be apparatus, trainings, all those sort of things that were around the funding priority areas. The UASI stands for Urban Area Security Initiative, and both of these grants are DHS grants, Department of Homeland Security grants. So they have a terrorist nexus, and you can see here there's now two. There used to be one, it was Denver. Boulder, as you can see, is not in it. We are our own statistical area, but we were brought into it during the creation of what was called the Urban Area Working Group for the UASI. So we were able to participate in that grant fund. I know, a lot of stuff here. The blue one is now the Colorado Springs Urban Area Security Initiative. So they've created two new areas for funding to come in. We received a lot of increase this year in the funding, which is in the next slide, Nick. And so I won't go, and you can look at these, but what has happened, we had about $4.5 million in the metro area. That now has gone up to about $6.5 million. The Colorado Springs area is getting close to 3. They took that all hazard money that was in our area and took that to the state. So all we have is the UASI money now for the metropolitan area, and then put that into a competitive grant process. Now, why am I telling you all this? This is important because the grant notice of funding has to it 5 priority funding areas, one of which is border security, and that's the next slide, and immigration enforcement of 10% of the grant has to go to that. With our current state of affairs, you can see how this is going to be withheld or suspended. So we are expecting that the grant money will be awarded, but will be put on a hold until that is resolved. The state has filed legal proceedings to try to release that money, but we are under the planning assumption this money will not come into the UASI or the state of Colorado. Why is that a problem? Well, for Chief Bradshaw, as you saw, we have a hazmat team in Boulder County that would access this funds routinely for training of hazmat technicians. We have sensors that are on hazmat monitors that are about $100,000 a piece. We've bought a smart police vehicle for City of Boulder, the bomb units, our SWAT teams, all these different first response agencies access this money. There is a lot of stuff that is out there that will time out, and then this is going to need to be replaced. If there's no grant funding, that takes away a potential source and also takes away potential grant money for future projects or needed projects based around future hazard and vulnerability assessments. So that's where we sit. I want to make you aware I sit as the co-chair for the Denver UASI. I'm also a board appointed member of the North Central Region All Hazard Area. So I'll be making update to the commissioners because I'm appointed and approved by the Board of County Commissioners for that. So putting together full analysis. I've asked for a 10-year profile of everything we've received. And there's also a lot of committees that North Central region that we use for doing a lot of regional planning and capability work. And I've asked for an impact assessment and opportunity cost of having those committees basically lose funding and go away. So that's where we are on grants. If you hear anything about grants locally with the police, fire departments, whatever that may be, please do not hesitate to call. Happy to sit down and give you the full long version of that, but that's the quick flyover of where we are from a high level for our elected officials and senior leaders about potential fiscal struggles we could be facing in the coming years if this grant money is not available. With that stated, I'd like to go ahead and bring in now Ryan Airy. The next slide is, we call him our FEMA killer. So we have, he has brought back a lot of money. How much total money he brought back in the county? $150 million through disasters that they're trying to claw back. This guy right here knows how to stand tall and hold the line in FEMA, does this every disaster. We would give it to you. We would fill out all our projects, our PAs. We do it the way they tell us, and then we come in 4 years later to an audit when everyone's supposedly retired. They don't know where the information is, and they try to claw it back and say, oh, that $4 million has to come back. Well, he goes in with the county attorneys and everyone and goes, nope, that's not going to work. And they go, oh, you got it. Here's your money. So that's the long and short of it.
How do we teach more to do that? Because that should be almost a job unto itself, and should not be something that they, to your point, wait till people retire and then say, oops, that's not okay. That is just the most un-okay thing there ever is.
Well, this is where we have so many disasters. The commissioners saw that the need to create the Recovery and Resiliency Office, because a lot of times you build that into your community, after the fact when you're struggling and dealing with trying to understand just what just happened. Having this office, it keeps that expertise in the county. So there's a way to leverage that too here. So if your county gets hit with in-house expertise, that can be a valuable asset to your municipality if we have these disasters. And I think also help Louisville and Superior out and helping through some of their struggles with understanding things. Also, Allison, I don't want to not include her, but she's so she knows the inner workings. So we have this great team of subject matter experts to draw on that really helps protect us, because this is where in disasters the recovery is, the response is very dramatic and has a lot of visibility, but that recovery and insidious part of disasters that can really rip out the underpinnings of the foundation of a community. You're losing your fiscal security because of loss of reimbursements. So I wanted Ryan to come in and talk about where he sees coming in FEMA. Some of them are good. Some we're still not sure how to plan out. And then talk also about, there's some leaked memos that have stirred some people up around how they set thresholds for qualifying for PA. He'll give us a little update on that, and talk about this cool little calculator he created. Ready for that? It's a way that you can now actually start looking at recovery at a time and kind of see, I lose $4, what's that going to cost? And get some strategic intent around that. So I'll turn it over to you and rock and roll.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Mike, for the introduction. That was an interesting.
Anyway.
I'm Ryan Airy. I'm with the county's Recovery and Resiliency Office. I've been with the county since 2013, and we've been in a recovery posture at the county since 2010, I believe.
1 month we weren't.
1 month.
That was right before the flood.
Yeah, so we've been working on response and recovery nonstop since 2010. Millions of dollars of recovery funding spent, long battles to reimbursement, and I've had the pleasure to work with our federal partners at FEMA to make sure that funding comes to the county and stays at the county. A couple things that we're tracking on in our office that I wanted everyone to be aware of. slate of bills that are being proposed in Congress, and I'll hit on both. I'll start with the ugly. Back in April, FEMA released a memo called Actions to Rebalance FEMA's Role in Disasters. And that is an administrative / policy memo that came out. And the topic was rebalancing FEMA so that they're not funding all disasters. And the long and the short of it is FEMA is in this memo, they're proposing to change the cost sharing threshold for disaster declarations. And what that looks like in this memo is FEMA is proposing to increase it by 4 times what it currently is. And if you're not familiar with what that threshold is, right now in Boulder County, locally for a disaster, it's roughly 1.5 million to get a local disaster declaration.
Of what?
The
Public
damage. For public damage. Statewide, it's roughly 11.2 million. So we get a disaster. Mike's team in the EOC is looking at impacts. We're putting together documentation to send up to state for FEMA to approve a declaration. So right now we're looking at 1.5 and then 11 at the state. Under this new indicator threshold, Boulder County, we'd be looking at roughly 6.1 million for a disaster declaration, and then at the state, 44.9. Why this is important is because if that changes, we're going to start having to look at budgeting a lot differently for disasters. And as you all know, we're all strained as it is. So keeping that in mind. What else? Okay. I will talk about the more favorable things that we're looking at from a FEMA standpoint. So the FEMA Act of 2025, it was introduced by the House on July 23, 2025. There's a lot of proposed changes in this bill that really strengthen FEMA from our perspective. First one is this bill reestablishes FEMA as a standalone cabinet agency, independent of Department of Homeland Security and reporting directly to the president. This grants FEMA broader authority over disaster policy, and it also requires the president to appoint an administrator that's confirmed by the Senate. The second one, this bill is proposing to shift from a reimbursement-based grant program to an upfront funding program. There's pros and cons to that. In my experience, the reimbursement process takes decades, and FEMA's been reluctant to provide that reimbursement. For the 2013 flood, at one point, I think it was 2017, they were withholding more than $40 million of funding to the county for various administrative reasons or policy disagreements. We've been able to get them to agree to pay back almost all of that, but it's not without really a dogfight over every nickel. And when I say nickel, I literally mean nickel. So that upfront funding model will be a really strong thing for local government. The drawback of that model is FEMA will require upfront cost estimates from engineering firms. Why that's problematic in some cases is because, as you all know, when you have a large scale disaster, there's so many unknowns. So unless the engineers are really factoring in huge contingencies, they don't really want to provide those estimates because so much is subject to change.
Do I have to ask a question about that?
Yeah.
Is there any, I can imagine the benefit is you get the money up front. The problem is just like looking for reimbursement 10 years later, you're looking for, it wasn't 30 million, it was 40 million. You only gave us 30, turned out it was 40. Now you're asking for that extra 10 and chances are, I think your 0.0. Is there a process? Is it just difficult or is there no process to say, hey, you gave us 30 on the front end, turns out it was 40. Do you get to ask for the 10 or is it just done?
My understanding is there may be an appeal process for that, but it's a really administratively burdensome and you're likely not going to get approved for that additional funding. You take the upfront risk to get all the money And then if you run or overrun, it's on you. So that's where the risk is in that. The current model, it's on a reimbursement basis. If you overrun your project and you're doing eligible work, if you notify the state and FEMA that you're in a budget overrun, they could amend the grant award and fund the difference. So, and then there's an appeal process for that. So there's pros and cons to what FEMA is proposing, or what the bill's proposing rather.
What engineering firm would bet their business on that? I mean, we have a construction defects out here where everybody just says, "Oh, we're not going to build that type of housing anymore." Now we got this situation where it seems like kind of like a deja vu all over again moment where they would have to try to somehow predict that everything would come together for that amount. So what would anybody do? They'd always go high.
Yes.
And then they'd probably get turned down, or they would, I don't know.
In my experience, they'll draw up a 30% design level plan and then put a 30% contingency on it and hope that it's good enough. FEMA's encouraging, or this proposal is encouraging local governments to sign up for the upfront funding so that there's not the administrative back-end process of doing grant amendments and going through appeals processes for funding.
Increase it by like 20%.
Yeah, I think that's probably what would happen.
Well, I would think they would turn them down because they would think that they were being over compensating for lack of real
FEMA would have
information.
their engineers independently validate a private engineer's estimate, and they build in a bunch of different contingencies in their planning as well. So it's remained to be seen of how it actually happens in practice, but this is just one of the proposals that are out there. Okay, wrapping up real quickly. The last piece on this is hazard mitigation funding. So as you may have heard, there's been pauses in federal hazard mitigation funding for flood mitigation assistance, building resilient infrastructure in communities. And then yesterday, the House introduced a bill to immediately reinstate those programs. We'll see where that goes, but that's positive news as well. Last little plug, our county administrator's office has taken on the hazard mitigation planning for the Boulder County multi-hazard mitigation plan. And our team will be reaching out to all the jurisdictions who participated in the last planning cycle. So we look forward to talking with you all about that. Thank you for having me.
I was just gonna open it up to questions for folks too, for both Mike and.
If I can,
Ryan.
Commissioner, I was going to just run through the last few slides. Here's what they mean, but not explain them.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
All right. So what Nick can do is there is an Excel spreadsheet you can share with the attendees, and then you can call Ryan. You can call Ryan up if you want to explain to you, but it really shows like what's a mile of road cost to repair in the plains and in the mountains. 1.5 in the plains, 4.2 million in the mountains. What's a bridge cost? All these things he's pre-calculated based on his experience in recovery. So it will give communities a way to look at like what would happen if that drainage flooded, what roads will we lose, which I think helps speaks to mitigation is how we make our more resilient to the impacts of disasters, which would save us and insulate it from some of these things that we talked about. Really quickly rolling through, just need a minute, looking at our threat profile for the coming year. We were supposed to have a average threat wildfire year up and through December, but that's usually west of 36. So this map shows this from the wildfire assessment from NIFC. And next slide. We'll show you but this is where we worry. This is the state wildfire severity map. And you can see, like going back to the Marshall Fire, the municipal areas are showing no risk. They say they won't burn. So we know that this is where the trick comes in. So you can see the red is very much the high burn areas, And, we're holding a symposium meeting here towards the end of the month, invited all the jurisdictions to come in, fire chiefs, law enforcement, city management, land use, to just talk about, hey, where are we with our risk going into the fall with the grasslands? We've had, a little bit above average rainfall, so that means our light fuels grow, but then they dry. You get the winds going. Most of our winds that cause our most damaging fires historically are between September and May. So we want to take a last minute effort to go, okay, where are we on our alert warning, preparedness, we've been mowing, grazing, anything we can do to find the areas where we could go in and reduce some risk and prevent what we call an urban conflagration. The next slide, it shows you the ignitability or the ignition probability of our county, and pretty much red, so everything burns. So I just want to not throw this up to just scare you, but to show you that when we hear normal wildfire risk, the grasslands carry a different severity around it. So working with our fire chiefs, our wildfire management folks, our law enforcement, our cities to make sure that we're being as prepared as possible moving into that phase. The other risk that we have, next slide real quick, is cyber. I met with the county cyber director today. So the trends that are out there are these international bad actors. They are in our systems, hanging out, positioning themselves to act when a relative international event occurs. And their idea is to go into that right where the arrows are, start taking out certain parts of our infrastructure and reducing us in our ability to support the international crisis. The other one is the business of hacking, quicken and monetize fake invoices, fake payments. It seems to be the trend right now. A little less of the ransomware sort of thing, but they're looking to like, oh, hey, here's an email and we need to do a change order, pay it to this. And then municipal financial offices or county and state are sending payments then to a fake account, and then they're monetizing that criminal act. So these are the things we're looking at. What we're doing in ODM is we're actually running a PACE program with city county departments. And PACE means primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency levels of protection with your communications, vital communication, information, database management. And we're going to take our city and county departments in October through an erosion of all the critical infrastructure right down to where we're back to 1983. And it's not scary for me because I was alive and doing this in 1983 with a 3-channel radio and no internet and no nothing. It was a little slower. We're using bugles and flags and Morse code, but we found a way to communicate and get things done. So that's what we're working on. And then the last slide to wrap this all up is just the final piece. Is you heard everything around. If you don't buy in, the county does have, you're going to be there, but as every disaster carries as a cost share. So if, let's say, Lafayette or some other municipality gets hit, the city and the county are going to bring in, we have 700 people that are in our WebEOC count. That's how many people have accounts. That's a lot of horsepower. They bring in emergency support function capabilities, and they then, when a consequence happens and I get a problem in the EOC, I have someone to give it to, and they mobilize their resources. And that brings in city, county departments to help out. This is our recommended sort of cost share to start around that. So it just is a billing point. The direction of the board was to find a way that just puts a scale to, if you're not part of it, what's it cost to get services from it? And this is just a starting point on that. So any of these topics, we're willing to come back, talk to the group. If there's something individually, give me a call. Happy to come out to your office, sit down and talk with you more in depth about something. And thank you for the opportunity to share a few thoughts about this today.
Mike and the rest of the speakers, thank you so much. This is invaluable information, and I hope that members choose however they want to engage, but I would really encourage us all to tap into the September National Preparedness Month. It's a great place to start conversations. We've talked about all the reasons why, so I'm not going to give you a lecture or a long-winded speech about it, but I would just encourage you all to make sure you grab somebody that maybe you just heard from speaking and hadn't met before, and connect that way as well. We could take one last question. I checked online just to make sure, and there weren't any on there.
I have one question just on the September thing. Is there, I'm assuming, some kind of campaign or to put this information out? Is it only going to come from the county for yours? Are we, and as municipalities focused on ours, are those going to be included, or what is it? Okay.
That's so they're not going to hold one
Yeah.
us not one united department, but still
Okay.
supporting one another and referring two programs that they can.
Thanks.
All right, we'll keep moving in our agenda. Thank you so much, everybody. We're gonna quickly, for electeds, if you want to come over on this side, we're gonna take a quick group photo. And then we're gonna come back. So anybody who's prepping presentations, et cetera, we're gonna move right into our next item, which is a minimum wage update. So that helps kind of shift whoever's gonna be speaking. Yeah. All right, everybody. So we'll get back here for minimum wage update. We may, depending on how long this section takes, we may have a little bit more additional discussion on the presentation of emergency management. Well,
So, I mean, she can't film a phone.
no chat. You don't want to chat. And it sounded like we had one presentation maybe that got sent, and as typical, you don't have to have a formal presentation. If you're here and you want to speak to the topic, that's great too. But maybe let's start with the formal presentation that you do have and get that going. Is there a slide presentation?
Yeah, you took care. Yeah,
On the, oh, okay. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Oh. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, let's do this. Let's do this. Minimum wage update, quick update, just for those of you who weren't maybe at this table in 2018 or 19 or 20 or 21 or 22 or 23 or 24. So folks who were minimum wage was in the conversation with Consortium of Cities and some other community folks and other elected officials. And my understanding, because I also was not here in 2018 and 2020, but the conversation was starting right before COVID and then got put on hold and came back in 21 to a conversation at a consortium meeting. And then in 2022, we decided to go ahead and look at regional, just really put a subcommittee together. And so it was not the consortium as folks sitting at the table, but there was a subcommittee that said, yeah, let's really look into this. So just wanted to give that update. And then at this point right now, there is not from what I understand, everybody's individually, each city or town individually is looking at considering and doing their own research outside of the assessments and studies that were done a year ago individually. And so the question right now is just to get an update. And Commissioner Levy is bringing the information. She's the lead from the county commissioner's office on the regional minimum wage. And she's going to bring the information that we get here this evening back to a conversation on September 9th as an administrative meeting with the Board of County Commissioners. And so we're going to share this information with her so that she'll have that as well. So with that being said, we're just going to go around the room, city by town. And if you have an update, great. And if it doesn't apply, that's your update. And that's great too. So I think I heard Longmont saying that they wanted to start first. Great.
So, hi, Sean McCoy, City of Longmont City Council. And on Monday, the 25th, this coming Monday, from 5:30 to 7, we're having 7:30, we're having a fishbowl where we have council members, we have members of the community, all working, talking about this together. We have people that are interested in the discussion, that they're going to be given kind of like clickers to kind of vote in support of ideas that are discussed at this location. Nothing is set in stone in regards to moving forward or in any direction, but it's a positive step in trying to figure this out for Longmont. So that
Thank you. Any questions for Longmont?
Lafayette, I know, is coming. There, members of theirs are coming to at least sit in the outside perimeter of the conversation to hear what it is, talking to some of the council members. So
Okay.
you're all welcome.
With the clickers, who is that? Just community members that will be, and can anyone show up, or is it
It's
selected?
primarily focused on community members. We will have, other municipal members from other municipalities out in the outside perimeter there to hear the flavor of the discussion and to maybe later talk to members of council to get their feel on that. So that's why they're coming.
And is it open, like open to the public, like it's a call? Okay, perfect.
Absolutely. So it's at the let me see here, Longmont Senior Center, rooms D and E, and it starts at 5:30 and goes till 7:30, Monday, August 25th.
Yep, go ahead.
Who's facilitating it?
I think it's one of our staff members, Sandy Cedar. She's the assistant city manager who will be facilitating it to what I can detect here. But
Councilmember, I had a question on the conversation for the fishbowl. That's a great update. I know I was in the council chambers just listening as we were listening to all the conversations about that as the next step, just to hear more from what was kind of a localized perspective is the way I interpreted it. There was conversation about Longmont putting on the ballot the minimum wage. Is that going to be part of the conversation as well?
I don't believe so. I think it's too late to get anything on the ballot. There was a conversation email I received about some other unrelated item, and they were saying that they felt it would be too late to get specific language on the ballot for that particular situation. I would highly doubt that what culminates out of this is going to take a while to be kind of distilled down to what we're really interested in doing, to be able to put it on a ballot.
So is the fishbowl to inform councils for 2025 to decide about a 2026 January 1 date or not?
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think it's about to see what the community's interest in it is.
Okay, so you're not working towards any kind of timeline?
And I don't think there's any council members that are willing to put that, do that. If there is any time for this to be put on, to be decided on, it'll be a vote if I have anything to do with it. So.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Any other questions for Longmont? Yes, council member.
Are you able to share what numbers you're thinking, or you're not even there yet?
You're saying my thinking?
City council.
City council. Well, that's why we're having the fishbowl. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for getting us kicked off. Boulder's right next to Longmont in this room right now. So if you'd like to give an update, Councilmember Weiner.
Oh, I'm going to pass it to Megs.
Yeah, I didn't see I apologize, Megs. I didn't see you.
Good evening, everybody. Megan Ballier with the City of Boulder. I serve in a support role for City Council and have been on the minimum wage project. Really, the only update we have is that our ordinance took effect starting at the beginning of the year, January 1, 2025. We'll continue to do our incremental increases as outlined by the ordinance that City Council passed last year. And we were pretty engaged on the tip credit bill at the State General Assembly related to minimum wage. So I haven't heard anything necessarily about City Council doing anything with the newfound authority we have over the tip credit within the city. But certainly that is something that they could indicate they want to move forward with at a later time. So that's sort of all we have for now. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Boulder? Yes.
Apologize for my ignorance. Can you tell me more about the tip credit and what its effect is?
Sure thing. So tip credit is essentially in jobs and industries where folks are tipped workers. It is an offset that allows business owners to pay their employees that by that amount of offset less than whatever the minimum wage is. And essentially, those employees are making up the difference in the tips that they make. And if they don't make up the difference, the business owner is required to make sure that that employee never falls below the floor of the minimum wage, even if they're a tipped employee and making that sub minimum tipped wage. At the State General Assembly last year, there was, I guess this year, 2025, a bill that essentially gives cities that have increased their minimum wage within their municipality more authority over increasing that tip credit amount. Previously, it was set at $3.02, no matter what your minimum wage was. So if your municipality had increased that amount by any percentage, that tip credit would stay at $3.02. And so essentially, those wages were growing in a different way in those municipalities if the tip credit is staying the same and the minimum wage floor is increasing differently than the state. So really it was kind of billed as an opportunity for businesses and restaurants in particular to potentially have some relief in a time that's been economically very uncertain for them. It will be interesting to see if those municipalities and government organizations that have enacted a higher minimum wage, if they decide to take that authority to increase their tip credit. There are some stipulations on how that has to work and the amount by which it can be increased and all of those types of things. But yeah.
I apologize. Maybe it's too complex for this brief moment, but that's actually what my curiosity was what is the tip credit allowance for municipalities? Because that was definitely, not to give the Louisville update, but we did not pass any minimum wage increase largely because of that failed tiny tip credit. And that if you go from, just to exaggerate, from 10 to 20 and you keep it 3 and 3, that's ridiculous. And so to have a bigger tip credit makes a lot of sense to me and is a solution to a major problem. But do you have more information about how big that tip credit can be? And I didn't follow it closely enough to know what people are allowed to do now.
No, that's a great question. If you would have asked me in May, I would have had like all of the details ready to go. I can't recall exactly, but I do have a lot of resources and information that I'm happy to share out after the meeting.
That would be great, Megs, if there's a resource that you feel like would address that question without doing too much research. And we understand about the timing from May till now is a long time.
The bill changed so much throughout the session that, any day you could be like, oh, actually, these details are completely outdated. So
Yes, absolutely. If you want to share those with Nick, then when he sends out the minutes and the recording, then he'll be able to add that in there.
Sure thing.
Thank you. All right. Netherland?
We haven't been participating in this conversation, but we are interested in following it and potentially future action.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Superior?
Similar answer. We informally discussed some of it in January. But I just know from our town and focus on economic development, we have a lot of small business spaces that are vacant. And I think the biggest concern for us is just creating more hurdles for small business owners. So it's literally not being discussed at this point. But this is bringing up a lot of questions that I have since I'm newer to the council in terms of the research and like that. Was there any done? Has the town actually looked at this or just on its face said, no, I don't know. So I'm going to go back and find out more what I can find out. But right now there's nothing happening on this.
Thank you for that. And I'm sure that the partners that did do their own research and assessments would be happy to share that. Or I know we've got a copy of one too, just because we were asked to take a look at it and learn from one of the partners as well. Louisville.
Yeah, so it did come before us and went down in flames. And I think it was for some of the same reasons. It's, really difficult economic times and pretty convincing arguments from small businesses that like this is targeting the wrong people, that, if you want to get Walmart to pay people more, this isn't the way to do it, and small businesses with 2 and 3 employees. And there are a lot of really interesting conversations around, you know, creating a more detailed approach to who has to pay these or when they have to pay them or and the tip credit, and so who it's really targeting and who it's benefiting. And so for us it was entirely too complex to just kind of go through and say, yeah, we want to raise minimum wages. It may have a lot of impacts that we didn't intend and could see coming. And then just generally speaking, this for me is not. It's the right place is not in individual municipalities, right? The right place for this is more regionally, whether it's Boulder County or all of the state. That it becomes very awkward when Louisville raises its minimum wage and Superior doesn't, or Lafayette does and Louisville doesn't. It's awkward, and right. So you want to kind of do it all in lockstep, but then that's very difficult to get many municipalities to do it in lockstep. And yet we do have different costs of living in our different areas, and so it does make a lot of sense for Boulder to be different than Rifle, right? And so you're trying to figure out what can each one do, and I think it's a very important conversation and it's very tricky, and Louisville is not currently taking any steps towards readdressing the conversation on our own. So I'll be interested to see again what the tip credit, how that changes the conversation potentially, because that was maybe the biggest obstacle. And then also size of business, I think was the second biggest obstacle of shouldn't there be like a threshold, like a minimum wage for like 50 or more, 100 more employees and not 3 employees or not high school kids. There's just all these examples of really got to pay a 16-year-old $20 an hour to do a job that takes no training. Like that doesn't really make sense, shouldn't it? So there's a lot of really good arguments. And like I said, went down in flames. There was really no support for increasing it, even though I think culturally or nationally speaking, Louisville is very in favor of increasing Louisville a minimum wage. It went nowhere.
Thank you for the update. Any questions?
Not a question, but I refreshed.
Amazing. Thank you.
The solution that they landed on was probably the simplest one, which was any tip offset in a municipality can be up to an amount that makes it so that an employee does not make less than the state minimum wage minus $3.02. So essentially in Boulder, our minimum wage right now is 76 cents higher than the state's. So we couldn't increase our tip offset more than $3.78. So it's the tip offset plus however much the difference between the state and the local minimum wage.
Thank you. All right. Naiwat, you're at the table. I want to give you an opportunity to speak.
So I can just give an update because we did move forward. We are unincorporated Boulder County. And so we did move forward. We have the highest minimum wage in the county, and there have been challenges with that. You can read articles in the Daily Camera, the Left Hand Courier, of small businesses closing because of costs, not just minimum wage, but the cost of doing business. We've had significant increase with taps with our water, which went up about 3 times the amount. And then, of course, property taxes. So it's a combination of things. But we are unique that we probably, with the town of Netherland, we don't have large corporate companies. We have small business. Our neighbors are our business owners, and they're closing their businesses. And so we have seen some negative effects with this. And I'm happy to go more into detail, but it has been challenging. So
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. And I'll just add on to that really quickly that some of our Niwot residents and others have asked Boulder County to have another conversation. The ask right now is to pause there might be some other ones, but the general theme is pause, so that we can give our municipal partners an opportunity to really look at what they may or may not want to do. Because again, the work originally was regional minimum wage for some of the reasons that Mayor Pro Tem Dixon was talking about. So I just want to connect those dots to the September 9th administrative meeting that I shared about earlier. And then I saw a question over here, Councilmember.
So is Boulder County thinking of pausing?
The conversation will happen on September 9th. And so
Okay,
this
okay,
conversation
thanks.
is what I'm taking back to Commissioner Levy.
Check.
Thank you. Any other questions around Boulder counties?
It's not a question, but Mayor Pro Tem from Louisville reminded me of something. It just, the part of the conversation is often that point of if Louisville raises and we don't, or we do and they don't, like that it's complicated and that we would be looking more to a regional or like a county. And I think there's more openness to discussing that than for us as a municipality to make a decision like that, just as anecdotally hearing people talk about it.
Thank you. And I'll just share from Consortium Cities, one of the powers really of this group historically has been conversation about affordable housing. That conversation happened in Consortium years ago and then became the impetus for regional housing partnership and that 12% of as a target of inclusionary housing. Similar. Gun violence prevention, after 2021, that conversation was asked to come to Consortium, and I was leading that group at that time. So that I do have some recollection of directly. It came to this group for the same reason. Like it's very hard for one person to stand up and say, this is what I want to do, but collectively, and if you remember those ordinances that came about collectively, that is also the reason I think people were thinking it would make more sense to do a regional wage several years ago. Yes, Councilmember.
It's my first and maybe only time here because Lauren will be back, but so I'm taking advantage of it. So would you consider, or is this like inappropriate? Would you consider going back to what Boulder is doing versus higher than Boulder, or is that not on the table, or is that on the table?
You're asking me as one county commissioner, I believe.
That's right.
So the conversation really is Commissioner Levy's leading the work, and so she's going to lead the conversation, I believe, on September 9th. Thank you. Yes. I want to ask our friends online. Louisville's already spoke, but Ken, I don't know if you were wanting to share anything. And I thought Erie was on. And the mayor was on, and I may have missed him. He had responded.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, thank you so
Okay,
much.
all right, yeah. Well, we've been listening to this and there isn't anything that the town board of Jamestown would want to do to influence single business that it would really be affected. So while it's interesting, we believe that we have to face those people every day. So I don't think there's anybody who would want to make it more difficult for this one business to survive. We're doing our best to make sure that they do survive.
Thank you, Ken. Any questions for Jamestown? What I heard was an invitation for everyone to go visit that business up in Jamestown. Is that what you were saying, Ken?
Friday night is pizza night. We have warm weather and there's music. Yeah, you certainly can go up there. You'll have the choice of vegetarian and non-vegetarian pizzas.
Thank you. I don't see the mayor of Erie. I think he must have had to jump off. So
If the mayor's not on, I could probably speak for him.
that would be
just
fabulous.
quickly.
Thank you, Miguel.
It's totally out of my wheelhouse, but quick Google search. It looks like we did a survey with our businesses back in 2023. I can't access the results of that survey, but I can check with our economic development department and see what came out of that.
Thank you.
Yep.
If there is any update that you hear, Miguel, from your counselors, if you want to let Nick know before September 9th, that would be great to inform the county.
Sounds good. I can do that.
Appreciate it. All right. Thank you, everybody. I didn't miss anybody. I just want to double check. Okay. We have, that's really the end of what we've got on our agenda outside of if there's any community events or shares that people want to talk about other than National Preparedness Month that we talked about already for the month of September. Anybody have anything that they wanted to share? Yes.
Chili Fest is a big event in Superior on September 6th. So
September 6th time?
I'll get back to you.
Okay. September 6th, we're going for chili. Friday, we're going to Jamestown for pizza. Mayor Pro Tem?
All right, we got two big things. This Saturday is Pints in the Park, Community Park. Over 60 brewers and distillers. Awesome event on Saturday, 1 to 6. And then Labor Day weekend is huge in Louisville. So we had the Labor Day Parade, which is attended by lots of communities because there aren't too many Labor Day parades anymore. And there are kind of festivals throughout that weekend. So Labor Day weekend is really fun out in Louisville. And for the first time ever, we're actually having the Pints at the Park the weekend before. It's going to have 2 weekends in a row of fun. So come out and enjoy that as well.
Great. I heard pints of, I'm guessing, beer.
It's a beer fest, so it's unlimited tasters, like an ounce of beer from 60 different breweries. So you can have just little sips of different brewers, and I think there's over 200 pours. So you don't go to all of them, but there's wineries, distilleries, and breweries, and they all have like multiple options. And there's like gluten free, and there's NA. And I will say, DD tickets are only $5, and there's music and fun events and all sorts of great things. So it's kind of like a summer fest, food trucks and all that, but it is under the guise of a beer fest. And so you have mostly it's breweries showing what they have, but Boulder, Erie, Louisville, Lafayette, like breweries from all of our communities are definitely going to be there. So it is kind of like a fun collaboration of all of our businesses.
That's great. Thank you. Were you going to add?
2 to 6, Saturday, September 6th, 2 to 6 for the Chili Fest. And when is the Pints in the Park? It's what date?
Saturday, August 23rd, 1 to 6. Saturday, August 23rd, 1 to 6. But VIPs get to go in from noon to 1. So, or maybe, it's 1 to 2 for VIP, 2 to 6 for general entry. So, I'll get you a VIP ticket in one vote. You pay a lot of money. No, I'm not running it. No, I'm not. The Chamber of Commerce is running it, and but yeah, no, it's fun. The VIPs, you get in an hour earlier, which is nice because there might be 600 people there, and for that 1 hour, there's only say 40, 50 people, so you can kind of go wherever you want. There are no lines, and then there's like food and giveaways and extra things for the VIPs. But otherwise, it's general entry from 2 to 6.
It reminded me that at the Chili Fest, there's also VIP ticket for tequila tasting in the VIP booth with the chamber. So you can.
Thank you.
And maybe I can get you a VIP ticket as well.
I love the competition for our neighbors to come out and check out the towns. Go for it. And
I don't think I can one up that. But before I head to the Chili Festival, I'm going to be at the Honeybee Harvest Festival in Niwot. So I'm going to hit up the honeybees and I'm going to get my chili on. And so join us for that. And then, of course, we have Rock and Rails Thursday nights. And then if you like to dance, you got to come to Dancing Under the Stars on Friday nights. We have different themes with country, with salsa. And so it's fun to dance under the stars. So you can go to our Niwot Facebook page and get all that information.
Great. I love that. Thank you. Yes, Councilmember Weiner.
We have our own Chili Fest, so I'm definitely not going to your Chili Fest. Plus, I get to be a judge. So, I don't know when it is, though. I have no idea. Also, my daughter's having a baby like in 5 minutes. Seriously. Now she's due now. She lives in Louisville. Her name is Lexi Adler, in case anybody knows her. She's about to have her second child any minute.
Oh, thank you. All right. So we should end immediately. Go ahead. Longmont had an announcement.
So our Longmont Chamber of Commerce is having their Unity in the Community from 4 to, I think, 7 or 8 tomorrow on Friday night. down in the Kimbark Civic Center area. And then on Saturday, September 6th, from 2 to 10, we'll have Rhythm in Roosevelt. It used to be Rhythm on the River, and now it's Rhythm in Roosevelt, which is a little bit better accommodations and everything. So that's what's happening in Longmont.
Thank you.
Well, I have
Meg?
a feeling. Oh, I was going to say something too, but unless we're going in order, go ahead.
Go ahead, Miguel.
Oh no, I was just going to offer. Well, if we're all doing that, I'm going to add in Erie's for the mayor. Since we have an airport, we have our air fair. That is September 7th, 10 to 2, and you can ride airplanes at the airport. So you have to purchase them, of course, but oh yeah, I purchased a ticket to ride an airplane. Yeah. But if you haven't been to the airport, it's really unique because we are, I think, one of 3 in the country where homes like abut the runway, basically. And so a lot of residents have their own hangars right against the runway. And when you park at the airport, you just you pass through the gate or the fence, and you're basically on the tarmac. So you get to enjoy that as you walk to the front door. So
Wow. Thank you. Megs, you had one.
Nothing quite so exciting as honey or beer or chili or planes. But we do have our What's Up Boulder annual community engagement event happening on Sunday, September 7th. That's 1 to 4. And we do use it as an opportunity to learn from community members about city projects and gather their input, and arts and crafts and lawn games and a dunk tank with the judge and the police chief and all kinds of fun stuff at Scott Carpenter Park. So if anybody's interested, we'd love to see you there. And then if you're very passionate about public transit, as I know probably all of you are, we have a celebration for the expansion of the downtown Boulder station happening next week, I think, on August 27th at 11:30. There should be some snacks and lawn games and fun stuff, and also speeches. I know. I was like, this is so municipal government. But there you go.
You did your job. Well done. I will just share out, because Mayor Rogan's not here, in Lyons on Sunday, this Sunday, the 24th, the Hootenanny at the Riverbend is happening. And it's a beautiful venue if you haven't been to the Riverbend in Lyons, and it's 3 to 7 p.m. So that's my offering on behalf of the Town of Lyons. All right, everybody, I want to thank you all for participating. I want to make sure, since some of you are with devices and phones and computers, that you did get the message about the change of date and where we're going to be for our next meetings. That would be the only thing I want to make sure that we just get out there. October 22nd is our next meeting, and the topic is mental health for the main topic. And then we're also going to get a presentation on housing needs assessment. Then our last meeting of 25 will be December 3rd, and that will be around business development, specifically post-COVID and post-fire. And then the second presentation will be the regional working group on homelessness update. Some of you might have been in that conversation a little over a year ago with a significant amount of elected officials and community groups. So we'll be there to give an update on that project. Right now, it looks like we'll be at the county courthouse for both of those meetings, or we'll be virtual. Either way, we'll be hybrid, but so we'll let you know. In December, the Lafayette Hub could be a possibility for sure, just based on the space and who else already has it booked. Great. Okay, everyone, thank you so much. Have a great night. We'll turn off our recording. Appreciate you all.